Hello and welcome to the channel. For some time now in the background we have been collecting and amassing a collection of N-gauge locomotives, rolling stock and accessories with the intention of making a small but functional N-gauge model railway that can be equally used for personal enjoyment and, if the occasion were to arise, also be exhibited at an event. So before we start building the model railway, let's take a look in this episode at some of the items we have collected so far. So starting off with the locomotives we have up to this point. Now I must say that in fact only one of these locomotives was purchased brand new. In fact almost all of this collection has been purchased pre-owned at very reasonable prices. Now just before we look more closely, I must add that not all of these are destined for this specific model railway, as we have plans for other layouts. Also, if I remember correctly, all of these locomotives have been purchased from Durham Trains of Stanley over a number of years. Locomotive number 1. One of our early purchases was this J94 Austerity, finished in British Rail black livery, a small but mighty locomotive, and many examples are seen all over the UK on preserved railways. Next up, locomotive number 2 is an LMS Jubilee class number 5593, a nice 460 locomotive finished in LMS lined black livery that runs very, very well. Next, locomotive number 3, we have a Merchant Navy class Elder Dempster line number 35030 in British Rail lined green with a 462 wheel arrangement. This locomotive, although fairly old, still runs nice and smooth. Locomotive number 4, I believe this was the first locomotive we purchased in N-gauge. It's an 060 pannier tank locomotive in British Rail black. This was originally purchased as a donor for parts on another project, but has since had its chassis returned to it, so it can be used on the N-gauge model railway we are building. If you want to find out what we were using the chassis for on this locomotive, I'll put a link up there in the top of the screen. Locomotive number 5, I believe this may be the second locomotive we purchased some years back. A class 5656092 in coal sector livery. Purchased on a whim because of its very low price tag. It is missing one buffer, but I am pretty sure that that was the only damage to the model. Locomotive number 6 next is a British Rail Blue Class 31. Also purchased on a whim, and because of its low price due to being an inconsistent runner, this now runs very well, albeit a little bit noisy. Next, locomotive number 7 is the only locomotive so far to have been purchased brand new. It's this Graham Farish J39 number 64841 in British Rail black with late emblem and factory weathering applied. A lovely smooth running model. This is also DCC ready. Next, locomotive number 8 is this 060 tank locomotive in Southern Green number 2579. Now this model was purchased purely because it was a small tank locomotive and very, very cheap in price. Next up at number 9 is actually a double act, so to speak. We have 2 of these 060 tender locomotives, one in LMS livery and one in British Rail livery. Both were purchased very cheaply as both required attention, as their running was rough and inconsistent. Now, however, one runs very well and one can be a little temperamental from time to time. Next at number 10 is something that I remember very well as a child. It's a Class 101 DMU. Also reasonably priced but missing one buffer. It runs well, if a little bit noisy from time to time. I purchased this model purely because of the memories of seeing these running on the railways when I was a child. Next, locomotive number 11. So next is a German DB 210. Now, I've always had a fondness for the Continental steam locomotives, and as it was in good shape and priced well, I couldn't resist this model when I saw it. Next, locomotive number 12. Now, a while back we did purchase a pre-owned Class 43 HST power car and dummy car in executive livery. However, the power car was non-functional and we were unable to get this running again. So for the time being, we still have the dummy car as we wait patiently for a power car to run with it. Now at number 13, also in the collection, are a batch of American models. These were purchased as non-runners, or in the case of the Jupiter locomotive, because one of my children insisted we purchase it. These, however, are destined for another project, which we hope to start soon, so keep our eyes peeled for that. So that's it for the locomotives right now, so let's move on to the rolling stock. So if we take a look at the goods vehicles first. So far we have collected 5 tankers, although one of these is a Pico kit, which was obtained at the Great Electric Train Show a couple of shows back. The SO1 and the United Dairies tankers were purchased from Durham Trains of Stanley, and the Express Dairies and the other United Dairies tanker were purchased recently from the Locomotive Shed Shop at the North Yorkshire Moors Railway. Moving on from the tankers, we have collected 12 open wagons. All of these have been purchased over time from Durham Trains of Stanley for a few pounds each as and when we've seen them. A nice little selection that can be utilised on a model railway very easily in mixed goods trains. Continuing with the wagons are a number of box fans. Now there is a variety of wagons here, 5 of which are fine to just go straight onto the rails. However, a number of years back I picked up 8 of these wagons that would appear to have been commissioned for a model railway club anniversary. These wagons are going to be subject to repaints of the body shell, but at the time they were at a great bargain price at a couple of pound each, and it seemed a good idea to pick them up for a future project. As for brake vans, we've collected 5, 3 of which are ready to roll as purchased, 2 of which require a little TLC, as they're missing their roofs. I am undecided as to whether I will fix the roofs so they can be used on the rails, or use them as a condemned or waiting restoration on the layout under construction. Also in the collection picked up for our American locomotives is a caboose and what appears to be a grain wagon. As I said earlier, the American stock are destined for a future project which should be very interesting. Now for our coaching stock. Until recently I had not realised just how much we had amassed in coaches, so here we go. There are 7 Mark I coaches in blue-grey livery, although they do differ in length and manufacturer. There is one Mark II, however, and this coach has an interesting trick to it. From one side it is air-conditioned, and from the other, it's not. I have no idea how this coach has ended up like this, but it does mean, depending on which side you look at, depends which model of Mark II you see. Also varying in length are 4 more Mark I coaches in crimson and cream, or blood and custard, or even rhubarb and custard, depending on how you choose to describe it. There are 3 further Mark I coaches in maroon, which we purchased from the Great Electric Train Show some years back. Moving on from the Mark Is, there are 4 wonderful Pullmans, which I think were very well priced at £10 each from Durham Trains of Stanley. Needless to say, I could not resist purchasing these. These are older models, but still very, very nicely detailed. We also picked up a few Mark III coaches shortly after we purchased the Class 43 units. However, as the power car was of no use, these have yet to be used. In a similar way, we also picked up a couple of Mark IVs, very cheaply. However, this was done in error and in a hurry, initially believing from a glance that they were Mark IIIs. For the moment, we will keep a hold of these, but I am unsure as to what I would run with them in the future. So that's it for the rolling stock. In the next episode, we will be planning the layout and constructing the baseboard. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I will see you in the next one. Bye now.